Hey everyone, this is Nate Lindquist, and I'm here with
Margaret Wright. Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. We are excited today. We have all this good news to talk about. This is going to be an awesome training.
Yes.
We're starting our Team Power series to talk about building your team, and the big part about getting into the business is, of course, having the people around you who know how to help you build your business. So we're going to be covering that, and we're also going to be welcoming some of our newest FlipChicks today. So big welcome to Desiree. Welcome to the FlipChick community, the sisterhood.
I'm glad to have you here, Desiree.
I want to sing the song.
Oh no, what song?
Desiree, oh Desiree.
I don't know that song.
It's like an 80s or something song. I don't even know. I'm gonna those songs you think you know, and then you
Desiree,
make up words for 20 years, and then you realize you really don't know the words. I know the word Desiree and that there's a song.
Everybody who's been here for a while knows that Nate periodically belts out sometimes show tunes, sometimes 80s.
Sometimes hip hop, a little bit of rap.
Hard to say.
Maybe I'll do a ballad. Anyways, welcome Desiree, and also, real quick, Julie and Chaz. Hopefully Chaz is here too. Welcome to the FlipChicks, our two newest members. So you're in great company, all of you, because we've got this amazing group. And Margaret wants to say something.
So all of you who are veterans here, when you're on the RIA, if you notice, Desiree and Julie posting some questions and comments and progress, please welcome them and the RIA as well. And we're glad to have both of you in the sisterhood.
Absolutely. So I want to make sure you guys know where the tools are. There's the little arrow on your screen where you can raise your hand. You can click that. You can raise your hand. You can put in comments. I also want to make sure. Go ahead and try it. Everyone, just go ahead and raise your hand. Make sure everyone knows where that is. Look at that. Okay.
It's like roll call.
Yeah. Yeehaw. Oh, it's wow. Awesome. I could have had more fun with that. There's time for that though. So what we want to talk about here is that, of course, this is sort of like a friendly reminder, get out all the distractions away from you, close the door, tell people if they come in, you'll bite them. This is your time. You made an investment to be here. We're here. We're going to teach, then we're going to answer questions, and we want to make sure that we give you our very best. So we're going to ask that you give us all of your attention and energy, and give yourself the gift of being present for the time that we're here. Ask questions. If your questions are questions that can be answered easily and directly through the FlipChick online course, the 90-day quick start, that's where we're going to direct you. We'll give you a little pointer, but we're going to move you along, because the idea here is let's get into the nitty-gritty, the meat and potatoes, the what's going on today, what will move you forward to your next step.
And we talked about it last week. What's going to serve you best is to focus your questions on the step that you are on right now. So if you're going to ask a question and you're not going to take action on it.
Or if you're not on that step.
Yeah, it's not the right question. So think about exactly where you are.
And what's going to move you forward. And you know what? Margaret's fantastic. We can both do psychology and mechanics, but what we like to do most often is we'll split that up. So Margaret will get into the mechanics, I'll get into the psychology. We'll bring it together with a high five, and we'll get you moving forward. You will not stay stuck. But if it's going to be like, oh, I'm feeling like I want to ask a question because this is a fun question. There's nothing wrong with asking questions, but if it's not going to move you forward, then that's becoming a bit of entertainment.
You don't want to waste your time, like Nate said, being entertained, finding information out for the sake of knowing the information.
Or just to be able to raise your hand and say hi.
Find information for the sake of making progress. So when you're asking the question, commit to actually doing something with it. So, we want to really hold you accountable, hold you to a very high standard of progress. And in the questions, that's something that we want to see. All right.
Remember, as we teach this tonight, every single one of our weekly calls is designed to bring you up to speed in something a specialized step, something based on mechanics, based on flipping and investing, or something based on psychology, something about being productive, moving forward. Whether it's beliefs or dealing with fears, stuff that's going on in your own head, your level of confidence and certainty moving forward, what's your next step. But fundamentally, and all of you need to know, you can go into the 90-day quick start. You can go through the bonus library. You can go through all the materials that you have access to, and you can go through the Flip and Flow formula, the financial freedom formula. So regardless of where you are in the process, every one of our weekly trainings is helpful and valuable and will move you forward no matter where you are.
Yeah.
So get into the training online and then take advantage of this time, take some notes, have your pen and paper ready, And
I think one of the most valuable, when I think about the online training versus the live training, is the experience of the people who are at, maybe at the same step as you, or the next step, or maybe 3 steps ahead of you, to be able to learn from each other's experiences. And I know that in the training, we share a lot of our experience, and there's something very powerful about, your peers, seeing your peers start off at the same place that you are, and seeing them progress, and seeing them get their first house under contract, and then get it, get their contractors hired, and then get it fixed up, and then sold, and then onto their second one, and maybe get some rental properties in the process. So, give yourself permission to be inspired by your peers and your fellow FlipChicks that are on the call.
Yep, this is a great sisterhood. It's a great team. There's great couples here, and also women. So just be prepared to really tune in and focus on what we're going through. Don't think, oh, I'm not really at the hiring contractors phase because I don't have a property, so I'm just going to kind of focus. I assure you, being able to ask questions now, or being able to pay attention to this training now, will have an impact on you. So if you really do that, or you don't, okay? So I found out in looking at research, because I love putting together the trainings and really digging into, Margaret and I like to dig into, like, what's going on right now in flipping, what's going on in investing. We found out that the top fear, I always thought it was finding the money, but the top fear right now, I looked at the top 8 podcasts today on real estate and found out that the top question is about finding and dealing with contractors.
So having the relationship with contractors is a love-hate relationship. Things can go really well, and they can go south and go sour very, very quickly and easily.
Yep, it's a balance of what's written down. It's a balance of what you heard, what they said. It's a balance of what really happened versus what they said happened. So being able to understand how to navigate these roads will give you peace of mind even before you're at the place of hiring. So just, tune in on this one. And, there's going to be a lot of fear, in anything that you're doing that's way outside your comfort zone or experience.
Anything you're doing for the first time, yeah. If
it's the first time.
For me, it's funny. Even I think about a recent project we had where we needed some stuff done with some well and septic, and that's not something that we deal with often in the area that we're in. And I even got a little bit like, I don't know enough. It's same conversations that you might be having in your head. I'm not sure if I know the right questions to ask. I don't know, what if they take advantage because I don't know what I'm talking about. So just know that the more experience you have, you will eventually become, certainly maybe not an expert because there's no reason for that, but well versed enough to be able to make a profit and keep the contractor happy at the same time.
And let me give you a little learning tip, because I know some of you right now are reading ahead because all this information is on the screen. And here's what's happening when you're doing that. You're using your incredibly powerful resource of awareness and attention, and you're putting it on something we're not talking about yet. So I'm going to ask you whether we have the bullets or information that we're sharing pop up sequentially one at a time, or we have them all show up on the screen at once. Your best way of learning is to listen to what we're talking about and go through it with us, and listen to the stories and the connections that we make in the process, because it's not just about information. It's about really understanding what we're talking about and thinking about how it applies to what we've really done, so you can think about how it might apply to what you're doing. So don't read ahead. Do not read ahead. Okay, remember the mindset of most contractors. They sat down one day. It's kind of like E-Myth in a lot of ways. They decided, oh, you know what? I don't want to work for someone else, but I'm really good at swinging a hammer. And they didn't suddenly end up really good at running a business. So
yeah, how many people do you know they say, well, I'm better at this than my boss, therefore I should go be the boss somewhere.
Yeah, let's do this. How many of you have worked for someone where you thought you could do a better job at running the business than they are? Just go ahead. Just be honest. Come on, we all had jobs.
Or you know somebody who's had that mindset, and the book, The E-Myth, if you guys haven't read it, it's a really good book. They talk about the entrepreneurial seizure, that you're really good at something, so people start telling you, you in the E-Myth book, you're so great at baking pies, you make the best pies, you should go start a pie business.
Isn't that chapter 7?
And
I think so.
The All About Pies is the name of the company in the story. And she goes out and she opens up a pie business and hates it and starts to hate making pies, even though she always loved it. So that's the case with a lot of contractors. They're not good at running the business. They're good at doing the trade.
Yep. So I will tell you that if you've ever had a job and you had to go there early and you had to do a bunch of stuff that maybe, how many times has the boss been unprepared to go over stuff with you, but he was all enthusiastic the day before? He's got other stuff on his mind, including running a business in some cases. In some cases, you know what? The boss that you had actually was horrible at running a business. You know, as a business growth consultant, you know, I've been in that field now for over 27 years. Over 27 years? Over 26 years. 27 years in March. Here's what I learned. Every single boss I ever had was an a-hole. Here's why. Not because he really was, but because I felt as though I had a better system, a better plan, a better way of doing it. And then in time, although it was really good for me to like break away, I gained perspective. And contractors in most cases do not have that perspective where they understand running a business and repairing a house are not the same thing.
Right.
Okay? So it's cool. It's cool if you had that feeling. Everyone who had a job has had that feeling at one point or another. Now, I want you to know there's three kinds of contractors. There are cheap and maybe even reasonably priced ones. They're not really good at business, timing, details, or understanding the numbers, but you know, they're cheap. And that's what isn't that what every investor's looking for? I want to get a deal. Second, there are the big ones that are good at business, but are also not cheap, not even remotely cheap. Quite often like 25, 35, 105% more expensive. And then there are also the in-between who are a bit of both. And if you get lucky enough to find one, don't count on it, make it happen. The idea is you've got to go out and, first of all, understand these are the three kinds of contractors, and then you have to filter through them, and we're going to tell you how to do that.
And the idea is you want to meet with and have conversations with enough of these contractors in your, in your interviewing stage, and your just starting to feel it out and vetting people that you can recognize these. So the cheap guy might be the handyman. Oh, I can do that. I can do that. Oh, yeah, I can do that too. I can do the electric. I can do the plumbing. And they're sort of the jack of all trades and master of none. Or you've got the big, expensive general contractors that they come out. They've got a fancy office. They've got a brand new truck with a logo on the side, as opposed to the guy who's got the magnet stick on that they got for $50. So finding the balance between the two is going to be where your sweet spot is in finding contractors, because it's going to make it more profitable. You want somebody who has some business sense, somebody who can get things done on budget, on a timeline, but you don't want to be paying for their overhead, their in-house secretaries and their sales guy and, all of these different layers that they need to bid into the contract with you.
They're off-season pricing because they haven't got enough work.
Right.
So here's another thing to keep in mind.
And we're going to dig deeper into how to find the right guys.
Yeah, I want you to keep in mind. So there's, don't be afraid of the big ones that are good at business, and I'll tell you why. In many experiences, you'll find some of these big ones are so successful because they found a way to become cheap. Mm-hmm. And what they've done is they might have a higher rate, but the difference between price and cost are two very different things. And we're going to get into that a little bit. So there's a huge distinction between price and cost. And as you think about that, I'll share an example of there's a plumbing company. And I grew up in New Hampshire. There's a plumbing and HVAC company who used to quote projects, and what we found was they were getting told over and over again their estimates were just too high. Estimates were too high. So what we did was we talked to a bunch of people who were competitors and looked at some of their pricing and talked to people who they worked with, and here's what we found out. The price for the job was definitely quite a bit higher than the competition. So there was a perception problem. But most of the competition that we spoke to were on site for 3 to 4 months longer to do the job than the client who we had. Now, in all of my experiences in coaching and growing businesses, this was a real perception problem. But the fact is, the 3 or 4 months that these other competitors were on the job were costing the clients who had hired them 3 to 4 times the original price of the contractor.
Right.
So, that's coming from marketing experience in the past. So what we did is we said, listen, here's what you're going to do. You're going to give them a guarantee as part of your messaging that, you know what, our price is always higher and the cost is always lower. Their phone started ringing off the hook because everyone wanted to know what the heck does that mean. So you're going to learn what that means on this call tonight. Another example might be that I've worked with a creative director who bills himself out at $150 an hour to some people and $100 an hour depending, and routinely gets the job done in 1/10 or somewhere between 1/4 and 1/10 the time of people who are far less expensive. So very, very valuable, very talented. And also, there's a little bit of a three-legged stool happening here that we'll talk about. So there's three things you always want in a project, and you can really only get one or two. So more on that as we move along. Here's how you find the contractors that you need. Let's go right down the list, and we'll share some stories and some insights along the way. So the first one is plan and act ahead, proactive. You want to start to think not urgent but important. When it comes to finding contractors, this is an ongoing process.
Yeah, as you're looking at houses, ideally you're starting to vet your contractors as you're looking at the houses. So you might call them and say, I've got a house that I'm looking at. Could you come by and look at it with me? Without an expectation that they're going to be your savior and they're going to be the person who you always work with. And, without an expectation that they're going to show up and look at 10 houses with you without hiring them. So it's a little bit like dating. There's a lot of our business that's a little bit like dating. Mm-hmm. So this is...
Thank God we're not dating anymore.
So, it's starting to think, when you first go look at a house, can you get a plumber to come with you? Can you get an electrician to come with you? It doesn't have to be every house, and it doesn't have to be every trade for every house. But ideally, you can start to have this building of a relationship way before you need them to start the job. So when you're starting to look at a project, hey, I've got this project, I'm getting it under contract, I'm making an offer on it. Even some people will say, sorry, when you get it under contract, then I'll come look at it. They probably have been around the block a time or two. Some people will say, yeah, absolutely, I'll be right there. And they actually do come to 10 of them. That may make you wonder why they're not busy working, doing what they're supposed to be doing. So the idea is that as soon as you start looking at houses, you want to start looking at contractors so that you can find the one that you're comfortable with, so that you can start to get pricing. For me, I think, we women have an advantage in that we have women's intuition, and, don't ever work with somebody who doesn't feel good in that initial meeting. You can automatically scratch them off of your list. But, starting early.
Be sure it's not just because you're nervous and you've never done it before.
Right.
There's also some factors of understanding the specifics and knowing the numbers and the information that you're looking at. Because you know what? Let's just face it. You meet with a contractor in HVAC and you've never interviewed a contractor for HVAC, or especially if someone who swings a hammer, that can be uncomfortable even for the guys.
One of the best things that you can say to a contractor is, can you help me understand what's going on here? So write this down. Can you help me understand what's going on here? So it's not, it's giving them props for being the expert.
Absolutely.
And it's not saying, oh, I have no idea what this is. It's, help me understand exactly what's going on here.
How many of you, a quick show of hands, would feel really good if you were meeting with someone who said, okay, could you just help me understand what's going on here? Someone who was asking you for your expertise in whatever it is, instead of just saying, here's what I want. Right. Give me a price.
And it makes it so that you don't ever have to come across as being the expert, and it makes it so that you don't ever have to come across as I have no idea what the hell you're talking about, which sometimes I say that too.
More than even when we do, sometimes it's a better bet to say, I'm not really experienced with this. Could you help me?
Yeah, so number 2 is have a revolving list based on specialty. So even when you find a great plumber, make sure that you're still looking at other plumbers. We've worked with, there's some people that I've worked with for more than a decade, and I still will have a couple of other people on that specialty in my back pocket because, what just happened this past week was our plumber was in Mexico. So if I didn't have a backup, I might not have been able to get the job done, or, certainly I would have lost sleep over it if I was banking on one person being my my be-all, end-all contractor in that trade. So I like to have at least 2 or 3. If you can find 2 or 3, don't let this overwhelm you thinking like, oh my gosh, I've got to have a whole, org chart of people. You start with one. You start with the general contractor. Then you ask them, or maybe you meet with them and you get to know their guys, and they can refer some other people.
Well, great question you can ask that I've found helpful in every business is, especially this business, is who do you like to follow? And what that means is, who are the people who you've come in to fix a project that they've messed up, which gives you good insights in who not to work with. And then you can say, who brings you in on a project that you like to work with? And what are you going to get? You're generally going to find out about specialists who are referring them.
Yeah.
So because every contractor likes to have a buddy system.
Yeah.
They love to say like, hey, I referred my buddy. And there's a little bit of you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours that happens when you're going through this process. Also, really important, I want to add to this revolving list based on specialty. Think of this as research. When you ask the question like, hey, could you help me understand this? What's really going on here? Like Margaret talked about, there's this really cool thing that you can do. You can listen and take notes, and you're going to see, you meet with 3 HVAC people or 3, carpenters. You're going to get 3 completely different stories, perspectives, different kinds of language, different experiences, stuff they'll share that will make you very curious.
It's funny. You let yourself be vulnerable a couple of times, and you're going to start feeling really smart. So the first time you meet with a
it's actually fun. I think it's fun.
Yeah, you meet with a plumber, and can you help me understand exactly what's going on here, and what might need to be fixed, what we can get away with not doing, just so long as we're up to code. And he's going to tell you a couple things, or she, could be a she. They're going to tell you a couple of things, and you're going to meet with your second guy, and they're going to say, their couple of things, and you might ask a question. So what about this? Based on the first conversation you had. And, it only takes a few conversations for you to sound smart enough for them to know that they're not going to be able to take advantage of you, but, vulnerable enough for them to still feel really good about being the guy for the job.
Yeah. What's cool about this, too, is you can have fun with it. I mean, how many of you real quick see this? I want to share sort of a thinking tool. Show of hands, how many of you see this maybe as initially when you first do it as a bit of a nerve-wracking, like, oh my God, I got to go meet the contractor in any specialty, plumbing, electric, and you think
nerve-wracking or even intimidating a little bit.
A little intimidating, maybe you get a little fear around it. Okay, that's a lot of hands. Okay. So today I had a conversation with Dan. Dan, I love you. I'm sharing this. And Dan talked about, Dan's going to make a list of 100 things that I wanted him to come up with. And he's like, it's a little overwhelming. Like, I've never done this before. I'm not sure how to do this. And I said, well, do it like Leonardo da Vinci. Make a game out of it. What would Leonardo come up with for a list of 100 things? And we had a kind of a brainstorming session. When you're going out to talk to these people, make a game out of it. And think about when you're done, see how many things you can get that are helpful, how many things that are new information, and get really good at asking questions and have fun. See how much information you can gather from these people that A, makes them feel good, and B, fills up your little checklist of the information that you want to know. And when you get done, you can go back home. And first of all, you just think of yourself as like a journalist. So in this case, you're no longer going to flip houses. You're just going here as a journalist. And what you want to look at is who, what, when, where, why, how. 5 W's and an H. Who, what, when, where, why, how. Have fun with it. You're writing an article about what makes them great, how they're efficient, right? If you're writing a really good article to put a contractor in good light, you'd want to know all their secrets that make a project successful so you could make sure that they were able to find the best clients. Now, in this case, as a reporter or a journalist, you're actually the one, and you might forget when you're on site being a journalist, you're actually the one who wants to read that article and find the best contractor for your project. So have fun with it, pretend you're writing an article. And here's what happens. When you're all done all these interviews, you'll have a load of really good information. You'll have asked really good questions. Therefore, you will have gotten really good answers, and you will be more prepared, and you'll have no nerves, or far fewer nerves than if you're going in there like, oh my God, I'm doing a deal. And ready for this? Here's the things you don't want to think. Oh my gosh, how can I avoid being taken advantage of? Or how can I make sure I just ask everything right so I don't get screwed? How many of you get that? Quick show of hands, you're understanding what I'm saying. Like asking questions, gathering information, and then you can always come back and get an estimate after the fact.
There are very few things more powerful than asking questions.
Mm-hmm. How many of you understand that? Show of hands.
The person who asks the most questions will always have the upper hand. And it might seem counterintuitive, but that's absolutely true.
Yep. So don't see yourself as someone who may have a problem. You know, there's a really big lesson that I want you all to learn, and it was tough for Margaret and I to learn. Do not start with the how. You're over there figuring out how you're going to get this guy hired for the best price. That's an investor's mindset when we start, right? I want the best price. I want the best deal. Got to make money. How am I going to get my profit? How am I going to get this done? How am I going to get it done on time? And here's what the contractor hears. They hear, I want to get this done on time. I want it to be the best quality. I want it to be the best price. And at that point, you sound like everybody else. You're a giant pain in the ass, and they don't want to work with you. So what do? In many, many cases, they give you a very high price. They tell you they don't have the time for a couple months, and they set you up to not be able to work with them so they can move on to a job where they're actually going to get paid. So, okay, which leads us to obviously what I just said. Understand price versus cost, the three-legged stool: quality, price, and speed. So price, really simply, is this is the price they're charging. Cost is, are they going to do it right the first time? What are the long-term problems you're going to have to repair?
So if I can share some of the costs I've experienced with not hiring the right person, you know, the cost of they didn't pass the inspection the first time, sometimes the second time, sometimes the third time. So what is the cost of a
or
project?
Or they don't come back and do the repairs so you can pass.
Right. Or, you know, the cost of it's going to take with, you know, sometimes we do go with a more expensive contractor because they've got an entire crew. They're going to come in and crank it out in a day versus somebody who says, well, you know, I only work on the weekends and at nighttime, so it's probably going to take me about 2 weeks. So if something's going to push off the entire project, what is the cost of not closing that soon? So, you know, if you think of it this way, so if there's an expectation that you do, let's just call it 4 flips in a year, and on each of those flips, a project gets, you know, because the electrician says, oh, you know, sorry, I can't start right away, or I'm not going to be able to finish it, or I need to go jump off and do this other job because I don't have a full crew of guys, and they take 2 weeks or 3 weeks extra, or it adds 2 or 3 weeks to your time. You could actually, you spread that out over 4 jobs, you could actually finish an entire extra flip. You could do a 5th flip in that year because of the time that you save by hiring the person who's going to stick to a timeline. So it's the cost of not getting things done on schedule and to the timeline could be the profit from one entire flip.
Not to mention quality of life and a huge amount of stress.
Right.
I mean, chasing contractors, they don't show up on time, they take too long, they keep adding money to the budget when it wasn't part of their price. I mean, Margaret and I routinely will hire someone because we know that price is the price. And they show up, they do the job, they leave. And you know what? Some people might be cheaper, but to hell with that. We know the price is the price.
Right. So, you know, in quality is the other one that somebody comes in and let's say it's a painter. You get a super cheap price on a painter and they're going to paint some cabinets for you. And at the end of the day, you end up having to take the cabinets down because they did such a bad job. You know, there's no room for you know, you can't improve quality after it's done, and it's really difficult to go back on that. So I'll give you an example. An example from the house that we have a closing scheduled on Friday morning at Bellevue. So this one is a contractor I have used for over 10 years, and I don't know why he can't figure out some of these little details. Bless his heart, because I didn't think about it either. But he put in the refrigerator right next to a wall so that you can't open the damn freezer all the way. So, you know, it's one of those things that, what was our solution? What, tear down the wall? And, you know, he's a
no freezer food. That's
he's
it.
An in-betweener. You know, he's not a big project. He's horrible with timelines, not great with, you know, keeping the, you know, he's great on our price staying the same, but his budget is almost always blown, and he's stressed out at the end of the job because he thought it was going to be able to get done, you know, with less expense on his side. So, you know, there's a quality issue. It's the kind of quality issue that I'm okay dealing with because I've worked with him for over 10 years. But imagine if you hired somebody brand new and they did something like that and it was a deal breaker, you know, or something bigger than that and it was a deal breaker. So, you know, just keeping an eye on the quality. So what can you do? You can ask to see projects that they've done. You can ask for referrals from people that have hired them to do work. You know, there's ways to make sure that you understand exactly what quality that you're getting. And same thing with speed. You know, price is price. Well, let me.
You know what speed works really well when you give them a very specific date for distribution of funds based on what they have to deliver. And if they don't make that deadline, there's a couple games that you can play. And they're not really games, but there's standards you can set where here's what you get when it's done by this time. Here's the money that you get when it's done by this time.
Right. And you guys, you have the FlipChick scope of work. You have the FlipChick timeline. Use those tools to hold these guys accountable.
They're in the 90-day quick start. They're in the site, the downloads, and I believe they're also all available in the bonus library as well.
So one of my favorite things, early AM at supply stores. So it's funny that, you know, people, I can't find a plumber, I can't find an electrician, I can't find a painter. You walk into Home Depot or Lowe's or Menards or whatever your local supply store is at 6 o'clock in the morning when they open up. You see who's there buying supplies, buying materials. Strike up a conversation with them. Like, hey, are you a painter? Of course he's a painter because he's wearing white pants with paint all over him. You know, are you super busy? Do you have time for a new project? You know, do you have your own, whatever. You strike up a small talk conversation and then you let them know, I flip houses and I'm looking for a guy. Do you have a card? Grab his card. And maybe, you know, ask him, can I stop by and see your work? You know, I might be in the market for somebody with your services sometime soon. And it's as easy as that. And
great conversation you can ask is, what kind of projects are going on around here right now?
Yeah.
And what's great about that is if the dude's stumped, you know.
Well, now's a great time, especially if you're in the northern states where it's cold. You know, hey, are you keeping busy over the winter? It's amazing. Again, it's the power of asking questions. Don't go, you know, spew on them. I'm so great. I'm flipping houses. I'm an investor.
You might be lucky enough for me to hire you.
Yeah, no, it's you know, hey, you know, you're standing in the paint aisle. Are you a painter? Do you do this full time? Are you keeping busy? This must be tough work. You know, just have the conversation. Be curious about them. And then at the end, ask them for their business card. Do you have a business card? No. Can I grab your phone number and put it in my phone? If you look through my cell phone, I have more contractors in my cell phone. Most of them I could not put a face to. You know, certainly the vast majority I've never hired, but I have them in my phone so that when somebody says, you know, hey, we need a plumber at this project, I can look in my phone and I type in under my contacts plumber and 10 people are going to show up. And I'll look through and be like, this one I use all the time. This one I've used a few times. The rest of them, I have no idea. But guess what? You think I'm not, you know, above calling them and saying, hey, I don't know when we met, but I got your phone number in my phone as a plumber. And, you know, I'm just wondering if you're, you know, ... whatever the circumstances.
We did that recently with a landscaper, and he's doing a fine job.
Yeah.
So a little secret about this, too.
Secrets are good.
A little known secret
in our little sisterhood.
This is a couplehood sisterhood thing. So if there's a contractor and they're picking up supplies at 5:30 or 6 in the morning, it means that they're efficient and they want to get the materials before they get on the job site. Let me tell you what happens when someone wanders into the job site. The typical routine is with breakfast sandwiches and coffee. They want to find a 5-gallon paint bucket to sit on or a spackle bucket, and they want to cost you money while they bullshit with the other people in the room waiting for everyone to wander in. But when someone shows up at 5:30 or 6 to get materials in the morning, it means they're planning to get on the 7 o'clock job site with all the stuff they need to work for the day so they can be efficient and effective with your timeline and your dollars.
Yep.
So super great little tip there. All right, referrals from the aisle. So you know about specialty stores, plumbing stores, stuff like that. This is what's cool. You could be poking around, wanting to learn more in a specialty store, especially the plumbing distributors and stuff like that.
So this is different than Home Depot. So you go to an electrical contractor store and a plumber store.
Yeah, well, here's what I'm saying is in many cases, you can't buy stuff there, especially if you're in a distributor or something like that. You have to be either licensed or you have to be a member of their organization to be able to do that.
Which, however, as a business owner, you have an LLC, you can be.
Right. However, if some of the specialty stores, for plumbing supply, you have to be the plumber. For electrical supply, you have to be the electrician. But it depends on which ones you go to. So in the case of some of them, you can still walk in. And most of them you can walk in. Here's what's cool. The people in these kinds of organizations are going to be very open about who they would recommend. And they're also going to talk about the kinds of projects they've been hearing about, because they're trapped in this distributor's building, right? And they want a connection to the outside world where they can be a part of something. And it's beautiful to watch. So,
and guess who they're not going to refer? The guys who don't pay their bills. Right. The guys who, you know, aren't great customers of theirs. If they're a great customer to...
They see them regularly, so they know who... They'll know when they're going to be seeing them next. Chances are they have the number, or they'll be more than happy to take your number.
And even more likely, there's somebody in the aisle 10 feet away that they can introduce you to right then and there.
Right. So there's a level of professionalism in a specialty store, especially plumbing and electrical, where, you know, and I can speak from experience. I used to have a sign company just on that level, because it was amazing. When you want to get a deal on materials, you go to the sign supply place where you literally weren't permitted to buy stuff from the floor. And they inevitably would have someone walking around. At distributors, they have salespeople walking around the floor. And they're not trying to sell you something. They're like very highly trained experts in the products that they sell, and they want to talk to an electrician. But what they also like to do is they like to talk about the products that they love. And that means they're going to talk about the kind of products that are leaving the shelves, and they'll even be willing to talk about the company who bought them or who's in the store right now. So if you ask questions, like Margaret said earlier, and get really clever with your questions, you're going to get to meet some people.
Yeah, and you know, so I'm going to be a little vulnerable for a minute. So for the first, I don't know, 5 or 7 years that I was doing the business, you know, I was flipping houses, I had no idea where my roofer or my siding guy got his supplies. It never occurred to me to ask. I really didn't care. And then one day I met him at the supply store, and it is like this little insiders club.
Oh my God, it's so
and
cool.
It really is. Like, so they have the list of anybody and everybody. They're not going to like print out a list for you. But again, you go to the supply store, you go hang out there between Home Depot and the actual supply stores. There's zero reason. There's zero excuse for saying, I can't find a good contractor. I can't find a good, you know, plumber, electrician, heating guy, roofer, siding guy.
If you go to a forest products, like a wood specialty product store, which is not the same as like a Home Depot, and I have a great relationship with one who I've worked with for years, you know, someone like a Boston Cedar or a Coastal Forest Products, and these are places that are either regional or national. What happens is these guys have spent so much time and energy on marketing at the granular level that they have cookouts, barbecues, loads of hangout time, educational. They actually send mobile educational vehicles out to their contractors to train them on their materials, to help them sell them so they can get projects. And guess what? Do you think they know these guys that are in their mobile schools, or the guys that show up at their workshops or their barbecues or their big, like, you know, tractor pulls and stuff like that? They all know each other. So enough on that. That's called referrals from the aisles. Number 6 is referrals from professionals. I think we've kind of covered that, but also you can look at, you know, the title companies, your attorneys, your realtors, your wholesalers. You can talk
property
to
manager.
your property managers. You can talk to other people who are in the profession. And of course, you can, you know, talk to other great contractors who you are working with to get referrals.
You can go to your city and you can ask for people who are licensed and bonded with your city.
Yep, they'll all quite often give you the ones that are on their top of their mind. And it's more than once we've gotten a list.
Or you might even be standing in line waiting for all the people who are getting permits pulled. You think you can't find some people in that line?
We were in a line this year, and I talked to a guy who was working on his house, building a house in front of his. Yep. And I asked him, I was like, well, who are you working with for your contracting? And he's like, he's very, very busy. He didn't want to give me his name. But you know what? It's not bad to ask. And
it's a casual conversation. It's not like you have to be a psycho stalker at these places. You just
unless you wait till the last minute and then
that's true. That's true. When you're in this business, these are places you might actually want to go start hanging out at. And we talk about in the finding your funding piece of it, that you want to go to Home Depot and get a line of credit. You also might want to go to these supply stores with your LLC paperwork and ask for a line of credit there. Imagine if they, if I say if, tongue in cheek, because I know they do, imagine if these supply stores give you a line of credit to buy the roofing materials, the siding, the brick, all of these places that you can get cheap or 0% financing. I'm going to call it financing because they're extending you credit. That's financing. What if you didn't have to use hard money for the supplies and you could actually get it through a line of credit through these individual supply stores, or, you know, these different organizations, these different, you know, the plumbing company or the electrical company, even Home Depot. Home Depot on the personal side, you get 0% on larger purchases. Why would you pay hard money, you know, 10%, 20%, and sometimes more if you can, you know, take care of this? So you're killing two birds with one stone. When you're out there getting your lines of credit, you're starting to have this conversation. You're in this business. You're
it's
FlipChick.
It's great for everyone with the birds. It's good for the chicks, not the birds. You're killing two birds with one stone.
We only kill birds, no chicks.
Okay. So so then you can go to Angie's List online. Just look it up, Angie's List.
Yeah, and the contractors, we did talk about that. Like that's ask your plumber who he loves
your
working
realtor
with.
or a property manager.
There is so much value in a team that plays nice together in the sandbox. So when you hire, you find your, like, I love this plumber. Ask him who his favorite electrician is. That's the best way to get people playing nice in the sandbox. And your house, your flip, is a sandbox. And once you do this once and you see how people do play nice together or don't play nice together, you will see it is a sandbox, just like at the park.
Right. And then you can go to Angie's List, or you can go to real estate investment associations. And you know what? Just be prepared to humbly share what you're up to, see what other people are up to, and casually, within normal conversations, ask. Just ask. All right. How do you find the contractors you need also?
I want to say one more thing. There's a little bit of a novelty in being a flip chick. When you go into a supply house where 99% of the people walking through the door are men, there's a novelty of being the woman walking in, and you tell them that you flip houses, they will definitely want to help you. Right.
So Dan, if you're listening,
Jesse.
Go be a flip chick. Wear your battle pink and just get in there. All right. So lazy thinkers fail most of the time. Don't be lazy. To be successful, it's hard to emphasize enough how critical it is to think things through. I know that sounds like, wow, thanks for that great advice. Here's the thing. When's the last time you actually really sat down and imagined your way through from where you are to where you'd like to be, whatever your outcome is? Did you include the specifics? Did you get your senses involved? Because until you've carefully thought through the outcomes that you'd like to see happen, it will seem impossible to overcome one of the largest hurdles in real estate investing, finding the contractors who will do things right the first time, and on budget. So you want to be proactive, just as a summary, be proactive because it wins every time.
It's, over being reactive. When I think about your first flip, it's a little bit like having a baby. So there's all this stuff that has to happen.
Now we're going from dating to having a baby.
It's kind of like you go to the hospital and you go to the title company and all of a sudden you have a house and you leave the title company with keys in hand, baby in hand, and you're like, holy shit, we didn't get any diapers. We didn't get any formula. We didn't even get a crib. Getting the contractors lined up is just like that. Like, you wouldn't wait till the last minute.
Well, you go to the title company to get your crib.
But these are the things. You have 9 months to plan for having a baby, and you obsessively, I say you as in I, obsessively from the minute you see that, that stick that says you're pregnant, or, maybe. I
assure you, your baby is going to cry its face off when you first get it. And you're going to be like, I don't know what to do. Give it away. This was a mistake. Give it away. Because when you get a property, there are so many things. The first time through, you're going to be like, I don't know what to do. It's just a little bit overwhelming here. I don't think I'm going to sleep anymore.
Which is why you find other people who've had babies. Or if you're going, if you remember back to going off to college and all the excitement of something new and how much time and energy did you put into, what's my dorm going to look like? What am I going to, my classes, my backpack, my everything, so this is like that for those of you who don't have babies, because not everybody does.
Right.
Bless their hearts.
So getting the best results, 5 quick little tips here. Best price, make them compete. Get contractors compete with each other. The best way to do that is use the scope of work.
Okay, so I don't care if you have finally found one person and you're like, I don't care how much it is, I need this freaking job done tomorrow. say, okay, great. There's a couple other guys that I'm getting prices from. So, wait. Let's do it. I want to have a share right now. Everybody who has been around the block with us a time or two, what's the question that we ask? Let's see. Whoever types it in fastest is going to win. I'm going to send you a book of my choice, depending on who you are. So what do you ask? What's the question you ask about price? Because I'm typing very fast. Oh.
What's the question
just type
that you ask
Don't
about
raise your
price?
Hand. Doesn't count. Okay. Amanda and Ryan, is that the best you can do? You have to tattoo that on your wrist and look at it often. We should get, you know what? We're going to get for the next FlipChick Unleashed, we're going to get those little rubbery things. Wristband things. It's going to say, is that the best you can do?
Bracelet.
Bracelet. Thank you. Why could I not think of the word bracelet?
So the thing is, though, to be able to ask that question, you've got to be crystal clear on expectations. Yep. So it's apples to apples. That means that your itemized scope of work is crystal clear. You can't say, is that the best you can do? And they're going to be like, I don't know. You got to remove the gray area so they can't pad their price. They like to protect themselves when they don't have enough information. But if you say, listen, this is all the information. There is no gray area. And you know what you can ask? Is there anything else you need to know to get this price? Give me this price? Make sure they're not just assuming that I better leave a little extra in there because they don't know what they're talking about. Get clear. The scope of work helps you do that. And then share and communicate those expectations, with them as you're looking for the price. And also use, I always call this 2 nickels for a dime, but you know what Margaret's suggesting, we call it 4 nickels over a dime. Here's the deal. If they have a sense of ongoing project by project and it's going to be a nickel at a time, they won't try to double charge you on the first project.
So here's what happens sometimes is that, people will, especially during, let's say it's the winter. So people are desperate for work and they're desperate to pay their bills. And so they're going to jack up their prices a little bit. Some people will do that. And when you let them know that, you know what, you have an opportunity to have 4 jobs versus this 1 job, then almost every time they will give you the frequent flyer price. And, versus if you're doing home improvement for your own personal house, it is shocking to me how much people pay for getting work done in their own personal residence because they don't know any better. And they're paying, what was it, Jesse and Dan, we did a site visit with them, and I think they said $10 a square foot for tile to be installed. That is a huge ripoff. But it doesn't seem like it when you're looking at 1 bathroom. So when you're doing onesie twosie things, it's really easy to inflate the price. For a contractor, it's really easy to inflate the price. And so let me give you an example of what just happened today, actually. So we have a closing on Bellevue on Friday, and there's a whole really big story, long story version of this, but the FHA inspector came through. They had a couple of things that needed to get done. For some reason, they sent a second FHA inspector in who had another few things that needed to get done. In the meantime, we had not pulled permits on some of the things that were done. Slap on the wrist, shame on us. We ask for forgiveness more often than we ask for permission. And this is why this is a closed group. We don't like to shout that from the rooftops out loud. But we got called out on it, on this project. So we were scrambling the last 2 weeks, seriously scrambling to get permits pulled for work that was already done, to get FHA happy so that we can actually finish the project and close on Friday. And we had some contractors that so let's say I called somebody out of the blue and said, could you do this, that, and the other thing? It would have been thousands of dollars. And instead, we called the guy who knows that we're going to give him the next job. And he did work over the weekend. He did some work today. He put up a railing on this funky little deck on the 2nd floor of the garage. He had to put a transition piece in, did all of this work, and frankly, because our back is a little bit against the wall, needed it done fast. We would have paid a lot for it just to get it done so we can close, get the reinspection and close on Friday. He charged us $350 to do work in the freaking cold.
And we only had to pay with Monopoly money.
and he did it. He had 2 weeks of work, 2 weeks worth of a job that he needed to finish. He came in on Saturday, and he came in this morning on a holiday.
Without argument or question or anything. Just got it done.
Yeah. So, again, he was taking a nickel over the dime because he knows that there's going to be a lot more nickels coming his way. All right. So number 2, best quality.
So you want to have a clear scope of work. You want to have an itemized materials list tied to that scope of work. The scope of work is available in the 90-day quick start. It's in the bonus library. Get it, download it. Here's the deal.
I need to say something real quick. Best quality doesn't mean custom home quality. It's the quality that's appropriate. It's not for
Trump Tower. We're not talking about Trump Tower here.
Yeah.
The best quality means it's reasonable for the market that you're in. You've got a sense from what you're looking at. You've looked at properties with your realtor in that area as you get to know the marketplace. And you know what? There's one property where we put in Formica. There's another one where we put in granite. You've got to know where to put your dollars. But you want to know the real way to get the best quality is have a scope of work. Again, we're talking about working with contractors. Have a clear scope of work. Have the itemized materials list tied to that scope of work so you know what you're getting. Have a clearly dated timeline with regard to what will be delivered when. And then have an expectation. There are going to be in-person and also virtual quality checks.
Yep.
All right, accountability. This is great. We recently worked on a project, and this is something that's super important. Fundamentally, if you're going to have accountability, you've got to get some sort of verifiable proof. So get photos via text from your contractors if you can't be on site or if you're not going to be there that day. If you tell a contractor when you wrap up before you leave, your ticket to A, getting paid, and B, being able to come back on the job, right, or another job in the future is sending us photos and telling us what got completed. Then they don't get paid until they do that. And if a contractor says, oh, it just doesn't work well with my phone, I bet you if you tell them the money that you give them is based on when you get that, it's released when you get those photos, they'll find a way to make it work on their phone or they'll get another phone. Also, you can overlap contractor work so others on the site can verify who else is there. One thing that's great, I'll call down one of our contractors, like the carpenter will be there, and they volunteer. They're so used to it. They'll volunteer, hey, the HVAC guy got here at blank time, left at this time. Or they'll call and say, hey, so-and-so is here. I want to make sure it's okay that they're here. And they tell us who it is. They tell us when they got there. So when you have multiple contractors on site, as long as they're not tripping on each other, it's a great way to not have to send someone down to make sure someone showed up. Because we're paying for results here. We're not looking for like the site police. But you know what? If someone's not showing up when they say they're supposed to, you need to know.
I was just thinking and reflecting.
Were you yucking?
I was yucking a little. So there's sometimes when it's a little game. So don't forget that this is for fun. We do this for fun and profit. So sometimes I'll talk to a contractor and be like, oh, what time are you planning to be on the job site? I don't tell them you have to be there at 7 a.m. or you have to be there at 8. I ask them, I'm respectful with what their plans are. And somebody might be like, oh yeah, I'll get there at 9 o'clock. I live an hour away. Oh, well, the electrician's planning to be there at 7. And again, you don't have to say a whole lot. Less is more in this business. And, oh, well, I'll be there at 8 o'clock, or, okay, I can be there at 7. So there's a little machismo that us women don't have that these guys do. And for us to, just point out what one person is doing, usually the other person wants to not even one up them, but like, okay, I'm at least that good.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's use Finn as an example. Our son Finn, listen, you could say, oh my gosh, I just ran so fast to get up the street to get to the house. And he'll say, I ran faster. He's
taller and faster than his daddy. And he's like 3 foot nothing right now.
Yeah. But he's awesome. And the thing is, he'll tell you how strong he is. Say, Daddy, I know you're fast, but I'm faster and I'm stronger. And you look at him and you're like, listen, I'm holding you up with one arm. But he's awesome. That's a man thing. It's not just a little boy thing. That little boy thing in men does not go away. It's I went down on site with one of our projects recently, and I was talking to Sergio, our contractor, I said, on the other project that we finished up, we worked with someone else, but on the other project, we were able to get the sheetrock done when we finally had the right person. It only took like 2 days.
Yeah.
He's like, and he just told me it was going to take 4.5 days to finish the sheetrock. He's like, well, there's a roof here, and we got to go up with a picture and everything. I said, no, you know what? No, take the 4.5 days. You're getting older now.
How long do you think it took? 2 days.
2 days. I was like, you're getting older now. I mean, look at you, got gray hair. And he flew
on. This is a true conversation.
And then he sent me a message back with one of those little like emoticon muscle arms, and he's like, what did he say? He's like, it wasn't
probably in Spanish.
No, that was, he said what he said in perfect clear English. He's like, why? No, he's like, where were you when I finished earlier today? Where were you?
It's banter. It's fun
I think
banter.
I was in Florida speaking, but anyways, it's not no matter.
All right, number 4.
Number 4, best person. How do you get the best person on the job? So you want to know their references, and references aren't all the people who love them. You want to know a timeline. This is a great technique. I just read about this today, did a little bit of research on this, and it's something we're going to incorporate, although we do have a great team already. References go like this. When they give you references, you say, great. Give me the timeline on those references.
Yeah.
And then when you call the references,
the last 3 months.
Yeah, and then for the references, well, it doesn't have to. Maybe they had 3 projects over 3 years. Yeah. But I want to know who you worked with, what you got done, because no matter what it was you were working on, you give me the references, and then here's the trick. Get the references. You now have your copy. Get a hard copy. Then say, okay, great. Let me read through them and say, can you give me the timeline? When did you do this work? And then ask them, oh, that's interesting. Can you tell me your last 3?
Yeah.
And here's what happens. You call these references and you find out they've given you people who have nothing to do with their most recent work. And that's an example of someone not to work with in almost every case.
And I have one little caveat I want to say. Yeah, that's great. So Angie's List is great because you see people's references right there.
Or reviews, yeah.
So yeah, you see the reviews. So I want to just say be cautious. Most of those people giving reviews are individual homeowners who have no idea. I've seen people who, if they've got 20 horrible reviews, then yeah, that's probably a good sign. If you see 1 or 2 reviews from somebody, just remember that if it's a homeowner versus a professional like you and I are, then they sometimes have unrealistic expectations. They don't know their head from their ass. So just when you look at somebody on Angie's List, when you see their references, give them the courtesy of, well, you don't have to give them any courtesy, but don't assume that because they have a couple of bad references that you need to discard them. If they have some good references, have a conversation with them. Maybe even ask them like, hey, I saw this really crappy reference for you on Angie's List. What's the story there? And the way they respond to me gives a better, I would, if they say, you know what, they just didn't have an understanding, like, oh, they were a jackass, I won't work with that person. If they say, you know what, there was a misunderstanding.
And here's what happened. So can I share
the way they deal with their bad references tells me a lot more than all their great, like, look at me, look how great I am.
Okay, so the way you just described it is so black and white, meat and potatoes, really valuable, and I hope everyone was listening. So I'm going to share an example. There was a very, very high-profile, nationally well-known professional I don't even want to say what industry he's in because it wouldn't be fair to him. But he's someone who had a very, very bad review in his business, and it was like just tearing him apart. And I was hired to improve his reputation. So what I did was I talked to a bunch of other clients and I asked them to write a review, but to start the review with a review of the first review. And this is what I had them write. If you truly believe this is true, then please write this when you start. Every review is a moment of truth, an opportunity to share what really happened. And I remember when I first reached out to you and asked you about the review I just read. And there was a very specific statement in that review, so everyone knew what it was. It was very bad. This client was losing hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Oh, wow.
And here's what happened. They said, but when the way you responded and the kind of service and quality that you delivered to me was exceptional, but the way you responded to that complaint was better than any of the work. It was amazing. And what happens is a moment of truth where someone can tell you, now this is what the guy said, I actually made a mistake. I made a mistake, and this person got angry, and they posted something in anger, but here's what really happened.
Yeah.
And what's cool is he got more business and notoriety from the bad review than he had ever gotten from any advertising.
And that's something as well in Angie's list. The contractor has the ability to respond, and if they respond in a defensive way, then, you know, again, that's a
show's over.
I don't want to be the recipient of their defensiveness. But if it's like, you know, it's interesting because you get to see a story of people's character in, you know, in a review or in a reference. Usually, right. It's a review if it's negative. It's a reference if it's positive, right?
So, anyways, I hope that's helpful. I'm going to talk about real quick the three. Oh, you want to see pictures of work? You want to see real work? You know,
ideally, you see work live, like if they have the ability
nearby.
Yeah, like if there's a general contractor, for example, who does flips, and you know, Bonnie, I've been meaning to have this conversation with you. The side private conversation. The guys who are doing the rental property, I think they're doing a fine job for a rental. I would not hire them to do a flip. I don't think that their quality of work is going to be as good as what it needs to be for a flip. So understanding you don't need to pay more than is necessary for somebody to do we'll call it a low end flip or a rental property. And, you know, you don't need to, you want to be sure that you don't hire somebody who's going to slop things together. You know, I'm going to give you, for example, so the project that Bonnie has going on right now, they said that the contractor, and they're sweet, sweet people. It's a husband and wife team, and I think they're doing a good job. They said, yeah, our painter sucked. So I'm going to have to go back and I'm going to have to clean things up. So it was fine. And it wasn't an alarm, because it's a rental property and it really doesn't matter that much in this level of a rental property.
And he was right.
And he was right. Absolutely. He was, you know, it was great because he was not trying to make excuses for this kind of crappy work that was done, you know, but he can't be the guy on a flip that people are going to live in this house and they have an expectation of something being done at a higher quality. So knowing somebody's work and knowing what they are appropriate for is so, so important. So if you have references from a custom home builder, that's really not what you need for your $100,000, $150,000, $200,000 flip.
Sweet spot.
Sweet spot.
More on that. Look for the sweet spot training. Okay, so the 3 promise chances. Quick show of hands. How many of you, this is pivotal stuff. This one's a big one. This actually, and I think we've talked about it briefly, but when it comes to negotiating or getting the best results, this is one of the linchpin things to learn. So raise your hand if you want to know about the 3 promise chances. Maybe we'll just skip that then. I don't know how many people actually want to know. Okay.
Those hands went up fast.
Yeah. So, all right. So here's the 3 promise chances. When you're interviewing a contractor, no matter who they are and how excited you are to work with them, because somehow you're just feeling really good intuition that this is someone to work with. All right, because that can go bad. It's a great tool, and it can go bad. Fundamentally, you want to give everyone you're thinking of giving any money to ever, in any business, any day of the week, ever. You want to create a gap between when you first talk with them and their chance to make 3 promises to you and keep them. One is you call them and you get an answering machine, and they says they'll call you at a certain time, and they do.
They say.
It says.
Oh.
I just said it wrong. The answering machine says that it'll call you back at a certain time. I was kind of thinking through it and talking faster than I was thinking. but the answering machine or a voicemail in this case, because whoever has an answering machine now, the answering machine or the voicemail will tell you, we call back at this time. If they don't,
we will call you back within 12 hours, within 24 hours.
Now, there's two promises there. One is if they have a number and you're calling it and no one calls you back in a day or a week, and they don't set an expectation, their promise that they are a business who wants to help you has been now, the promise has not been kept. Because if they have a published phone number and no one's calling you back, guess what? Cross them off the list. Now, the other thing is give them an opportunity to promise that they will listen to, have a phone call, and then that they will go over your project. Any aspect of that is a chance to make a promise. When will they show up? Where will they show up? How will they show up? Who will show up? It's up to you, the promises that make you feel most confident in working with them, and then give them 3 chances to fail. When someone says, oh, I'll be down there at 9:15, and they don't show up till 9:45, and they say, oh, it's just because my grandmother fell down the stairs. You know what? You're giving them 3 promise chances. Give them a third. Here's the third promise chance. You know what? Stuff like that happens. I'm really sorry to hear that. Is she okay? Have a good conversation. And then, when will I see your estimate back? Oh, you're going to have that on Wednesday. You get a call. Oh, my God, I totally was going to have that too, but I just need to go over a couple more things. You'll have it tomorrow morning. Guess what? Cross them off your list, because that's how they're going to work on your project. This is such a fundamental truth of hiring, and Margaret can tell you the amount of hiring that I've done over the last 2 decades. I didn't do this for half of that time.
And there's a balance between burning bridges and holding people accountable to their promises. So I'm gonna share a story that happened.
Are we talking about hiring still?
This is about hiring.
Okay.
So our contractor on Bellevue, because you guys are mostly all familiar with the Bellevue project, our contractor is in Mexico. He's been in Mexico for the last 6 weeks, which was fine. He finished the project and jumped on, well, he actually drove there, but jumped in his truck and drove down to Mexico because he spends most of the winter in Mexico. And luckily I had the subcontractor's numbers, who he was working with, but English is not their first language, and it's not my, Spanish is not not even my second language.
Sometimes I get friends from you.
So I was really scrambling in the last week with these FHA requirements and these code inspection disaster that we've been dealing with. It's fine now. But so I think
you did, but just for the record, your ability to just take that in stride and get it done, and we're going over to we're closing. I mean, you know what? I had a lot of shit on my plate, and Margaret
I should drink whiskey for breakfast.
Margaret says to me, I was like, where are we on that closing? I've got to be on calls today. Where are you on that closing? And she's like, didn't say a damn thing. And then I walk into the kitchen and I see the little approved stickers on the counter. I'm like,
no, only one approved. So far, one approved sticker. Let's not.
Okay, no, I saw. But no, you told me that the other things were approved.
No. There were permits pulled for them. They haven't been approved yet. It's a holiday today. They couldn't approve them today.
Okay, now we're getting it. See, I gave you three chances to keep the promise on that. You told me that all.
I know. I told you that all the permits were pulled for HVAC, plumbing, yes, and roof. And roof has been approved.
I love you like family.
I don't even know my point anymore. You interrupted me. Oh, so my number one guy.
I did see the one sticker for the record. I heard that all the permits were. I mean,
That's because it's what you and I both wanted to hear, but it's not.
I thought we were clear, like a clear to close. So
no, I said Armando is talking to the guys tomorrow. I pulled all of the permits that had not been previously pulled. This is a conversation for another time.
You thought I said pulled, but we're going to be transparent. You thought I said pull. Pulled. I said approved. So
I don't think you said approved.
You heard the wrong words with those beautiful little ears of yours.
Okay, so anyway, back to the moral of the story. So I was quite, frantic is a strong word, but I was, really, really needed to figure out who's going to do this work, who's going to do it fast, and who's going to do it cheap, because, bottom line, I am super frugal. I actually thought I might need to do the work myself, which we never condone, but it sometimes has to happen.
Condone, it's a good word.
So I started messaging my list of contractors that I have in my phone, who I don't often talk to because I tend to try to use my top 3 or 4. so again, number one guy's in Mexico. Number two guy, meaning his subcontractor, I message him, I get no response, and then I see that there's a missed call from him, and so I message him again and leave a voice message for him. And, again, English, not his first language, so there's a little bit of a communication issue there. And so then my third line of defense was start contacting other carpenters who, again, the 4 nickels versus 1 dime, these guys would be charging me a dime when I should be paying a nickel. Should be is a strong word, but it's not a lot of work. But if I'm asking them to come in on a weekend, rush job, of course they are entitled to charge me more.
Promise of future work.
Yeah, they know better than the promise of future work from me.
By the way, we didn't really actually clarify that. So if you have quality, you have price, and you have timing, there's a general rule that says if you want to get a really, really good price, then don't expect to get it right away.
Don't tell them that you're desperate and it needs to be done tomorrow. But because
your price will go up.
That is the facts with this circumstance this past week. So finally, so I messaged a guy who I've worked with. He's actually done a significant amount of work with me, and he regularly messages me, "Hey, do you have any work for me? Hey, do you have any work for me? Things are slow. Do you have any work for me?" I'll be damned if he didn't even message me back for 4 days. So he is so desperate for work when he's desperate for work. He's like the fair weather contractor. So we're going to add a, be cautious of the fair weather contractor.
FWC.
So he never messaged me back. I did hear back from our number 2 guy who went there on a Saturday, did half the work on Saturday, came back, did the rest of the work this morning. I didn't even, it wasn't Jorge, it was Eric. I won't say last names, to protect the guilty. So he went back this morning. Frankly, if it cost us $1,000, it would have been worth it, because if we didn't get it done, it has to, the closing is scheduled, and my realtor and my attorney had a conversation, and the conversation was, there is no way in hell this thing is going to close, because we need to get all of the work done. We need to get the FHA inspector back. There's a holiday on Monday. And, so this all came about the latter part of last week. So, worked our magic, got the guys to come on Sunday. Was it Sunday? Sunday morning. Mm-hmm. They were working yesterday. They finished the work this morning, and the painter was sick, so he's going to come back tomorrow. There was some peeling paint.
See, one painter sucked. The other one was sick. It's just different. It's so close. Okay.
So
I will tell you this. I want everyone who's listening just to picture a little bit of a pattern here that I've recognized with Margaret. Do not tell her that there is no way something is going to happen.
There's always a way.
First, duck. She's probably going to knock your face off. Because if you're telling her she can't close in a property that she's fought tooth and nail to get to a certain point, you're risking your life. Secondly, she's going to get it closed. She's gonna get the damn thing closed.
From hell or high water.
Yeah. So.
Anyway, they finished the work. I don't know what the point of my story was.
They're good kids too. They're good kids.
Yeah, they're real. So.
Was this helpful? I think it was a good story. Didn't directly relate to what we were talking about.
Did, because. Getting
Quick show of hands if that was super helpful.
The results are that the project gets done.
Show of hands. Was that helpful? Come on, show the love to Margaret.
I get no love. That's okay. You guys don't have to love me. You just have to learn from me and do better in your own life. Show
of hands if we should just we should let Margaret just finish this thing out, because she's all the brilliance.
Shut up.
All right. Last one is best timeline delivery. Pay based on results. Do not do disbursements unless ready for this. Critical. Scope of work and itemized materials.
I have one more thing to add to my story. So these guys, they said, "I'm sorry, I'm busy for the next 2 weeks." And I explained to them exactly what was going on in my best Spanglish that I could. And that's why they worked on Sunday and on Monday, because the main thing about what we've been talking about tonight is you're building your contractor team.
Relationships.
This is about not just right now. It's not make a quick buck or a quick dime. We're in it together for the long haul. So as you're building it, whether it's your first project or your 10th project, this mutual respect that we all have for each other, because it's really easy to is that the best you can do, can be taken in a not so respectful way. I ask that, but I never want them not to be able to feed their family. So there's an understanding amongst us and all of the contractors that we work with that we are on the same team. So full circle, that was much the point of my story, that when you need them, you want to make sure that they're available to you. And if it's not so desperate, don't make it always sound so desperate.
That's true.
Sometimes it will be that it really is.
There's true. If you like cry wolf a whole bunch,
don't cry wolf.
Then they're gonna be like, "Oh, they're just saying it's a big deal." And you get down there, and here's the other thing: you're late, and you're pressing them to get there early. Oh my God, don't do that.
Well, like the painter, he messaged me this morning. He's like, "I'm really sorry, I'm sick." I said, "You know what? It's fine. Just if you can get it done tomorrow, I hope you feel better." It was really about caring about them first.
So what Margaret's talking about is the law of reciprocation. So and it's a combination of law of reciprocation and the golden rule. And I've got this little marble here that says it: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And if someone says, does this really have to be done today and it can be done in 3 days, don't say it has to be done today. That makes you a jackass. And guess what? Eventually your jackassness will show through. The other thing is, we learned this from Suits, which is a fantastic show on Amazon. Here's the thing. There's nothing more powerful with a contractor than saying, listen, I know you're booked out for 2 weeks, but if you do this one for us, we'll owe you one. I really need this one. And if you really do need it and they know you're good for more work in the future, they're going to look forward to you owing them one. And what goes around comes around. Mama Sema Makusa. I'm throwing the mic down.
Never underestimate the value of bringing your guys lunch.
Don't ever. Or having a meaningless conversation for a couple minutes about something that's important to them.
Yeah. Ask about their kids.
Don't make it a habit, but you know what?
2-minute conversation, not a 20-minute conversation.
If one of your contractors is talking about the kind of mud that he uses to keep his face moisturized and have the conversation, just watch Suits. You'll know what I'm talking about. It's a great show. In the meantime, law of reciprocation and golden rule. Go write this down. Law of reciprocation. When you are looking for help and someone helps you, they are going to be glad to help you. And then the time will come where you will return the favor. And also the golden rule. All right, and last point that I want to make, pay on results. So you have set standards and expectations and proof requirements. Do not pay until those have been met. Do not pay until those have been met. Do not pay until those have been met.
Always hold out a little bit. So when you, and don't do this in a
this isn't ransom.
Way.
This isn't criminal.
With all of our projects, we have a couple $1,000s that we hold out until, and we make it clear up front. So we need to pass all of the inspections. We need a certificate of occupancy. We need to pass FHA. If there's anything that comes up we just need to know, not that we're not going to pay you, but that you're not going to disappear before this project is finished. And project finished means that we closed on it and, everybody's got their money in their pocket. So that's something that, a lot of time, frankly, even the contractor who left and went to Mexico, we paid him his last dollar. And thank God we were able to get in contact with the second in command and get the work done, for $350, which is perfectly acceptable to finish off the project. But don't, if somebody is like, oh, I need this money, or I'm 90% done, so you should pay me 90%. No, hold out a little bit so that they have incentive to come back. I've had guys who didn't come back and didn't collect their last paycheck because it wasn't enough to get them to show up again. So they shouldn't be paid always for the work that they're done. There should be a little bit more owed to them so that they have incentive to make it a priority. If it's $500 or $1,000 or $1,500, that's not enough to get most guys, really, really incented to come back and finish the job and make it to your specification.
And I will say this, we've finished jobs that have great success, and we know that guys are continuing to work with us, and we've allowed them to, you know what, you need a new drill? Drill's yours.
Paul just shared, we are living proof of why you need to do this.
You can do little things like little rewards when everybody wins. All boats can rise with the tide when you're successful. That means that when your project goes well, come up with some fun rewards. Remember what people were talking about and what's important to them. A couple passes to the movies so an overworked contractor can take his wife out, or a new drill or a new set of scaffolding for someone. We're kicking ass with flipping real estate. Help someone who's helping you kick ass too.
Yep.
All right. So that leaves us with Q&A. If you have questions, now's the time to ask those questions. And again, related to the step that you're on, not just, I want to go over something profound way down the line.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
So let's see what
questions are coming.
Let's see what we got. Okay. Question from
all right. We have to, so as you know, we get like all this stuff in. So go ahead and type your questions in. We're going to scroll through anything that came in earlier. Okay, so Carol and Paul have a question. Did you do anything different when you set that big goal when you were going for broke and get 20 units in a short time? So that's interesting, that term, going for broke. Like, that doesn't feel good to even say that. So going for broke, like going for, I don't know what's.
I think this speaks to a bigger issue. Can I speak to this for a second? So, Paul, the idea of going after a big project, it doesn't mean that you're not in business. So you have a vision for what you'd like to accomplish. And the visions happen like this. So a vision is, where would I like to be in 5 years? Where would I like to be someday? That's even bigger than 5 years. Where would I like to be in 5 years? Where would I like to be this year? Where would I like to be this quarter, this month, this week?
Paul clarified, going all out.
Okay. This year, this quarter, this month, this week, today. So just because we're going after one goal doesn't mean that we don't have a vision for where we'd like to be. So you want to make certain that you understand all the different initiatives that you're going to undertake to reach the goal that you have this year, each quarter. And then what happens is you break your targets out for each quarter week by week. Now, the idea that you would make a decision to go after one project and not go after others, that means that your goal for this quarter is that project. But the fact is, there's other things that you want to accomplish. So get really clear on what you want to accomplish, and depending on your resources, your bandwidth, and what kind of work you want to get done, it's, at the level of flipping, at the level of any projects that you're doing, maybe, you want to get a bunch of offers out there. If you're looking at, if we look at our project, we looked at a whole bunch of multi-units. Go ahead.
So, so I think of the term slow and steady wins the race. So you can speed up slow and steady.
And don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah. So the going for broke might be taking high risk. I would say don't take high risk and do that more often, more frequently. The idea of, and Carol
and Paul, we had 4 deals going at the same time as the multi-units. And what's happened for us is it put us in a stronger position to be able to do the multi-units.
Right.
So, you always want to be looking at all your options and don't limit yourself to one deal, because then it doesn't go well and you're out of business.
And there's balancing the risk and the reward. So if you're over leveraged, and you guys are in a good position now, and we probably should have a one-on-one call. You guys are in the mastermind, so you certainly are. I would like to have a one-on-one call for my own purposes. But I think you guys are in a good position now. You've got some larger apartment buildings that are solid cash flow, and the idea of, growing. I don't know. I guess I struggle with this answer, because can you grow too fast? I suppose you can, because I've seen so many people do that and try to get into, high risk for the hope of high return versus slow and steady doesn't have to be super slow, but this, I guess it's the steady part. Like, let's focus on the steady, not get rich quick, not going for broke. Let's go for steady. I think that's the moral of my response here is nothing high risk. Let's go for the sure thing. Let's not
and keep your options open. Be aware of what else is what other opportunities that you see, and
diversify. If right now I know that you guys are working on building passive income, so at your stage of life, it would be more passive income than flipping income. That's if you guys were in your 20s, that would be a different story. You guys are not, so. That's steady. That's what we want to work on together.
And I also would look at deciding how much risk you can tolerate. Tolerance of risk is important. So the idea, for instance, if you're looking at deals, and I'll just use something off the top of my head. Suppose you had a deal where you could spend, $400,000 or $500,000, and maybe your big upside of that was to make, a potential of $10,000 or $15,000 in profit. Like, that's not a really good use of risking $500,000.
Right.
And you see it like, no, but I'm sure I could make that money. You know what? There's no such thing as sure. And you could use that money, that high amount of money, for a lot of other opportunities.
Okay, Paul just said it's okay to tell your age. So
60.
Is it
67. Paul is 67.
No, it's...
Paul, are you 67?
Paul, how old are you?
67.
No, I think he's older than that.
He's 67.
Paul, type in your age. 67. Okay. I should say I thought you were older than that. I thought you said you were older than that.
I thought you were younger than that, Paul. You don't look a day over 62.
This is going to be easy to remember because I think that's the exact same age as my dad.
And
and that's why I call you Uncle Paul.
You robbed the cradle with your lovely wife.
That's true.
So I'd like to do this. I would like to go ahead and bring on a quick hello and I want to take a temperature here. Julie, is it okay, Julie, if we have you go live? Can you raise your hand if it's okay to have you go live so we can I have a couple questions for you and I just want to say hi. Julie. Okay, cool. We're going to have you unmuted here.
So you might have to unmute yourself.
Hi, Julie.
Julie.
Hello. Hi.
Hi, welcome to the call. Are you taking lots of notes and going crazy or what?
Yes, I am.
Awesome. So for everyone on here, first of all, you got a lot of shout outs when you said we welcomed you. So everyone's really excited to have you here. And I just would love to know what what questions you might have.
As a newbie.
You're brand new. You're just diving into all this new stuff. How are you feeling about it? And what's jumping to mind right now?
Well, I've gone through a lot of the online training and watched a lot of those, which have been great. I guess the one question, I've been taking a lot of notes and kind of jotting down a question as I come along. One of my questions was about the contractors. Do they need to be licensed?
So
great question.
That is a really good question. So a lot of it depends on the municipality where you're getting the work done. So so I keep saying so because I'm in the middle of I just got my hand slapped by the municipality that we're in because I didn't pull some permits when I should have. And I'm going to say I should have.
We can say we on that because we both agreed that we didn't. But
so there's some gray area sometimes. And
don't be the fall guy.
In the perfect world, all of our contractors are licensed. In the perfect world, everything we do, we pull permits for. The most important thing is that we are doing the work up to code so that if we do have an opportunity to get our hands slapped, like I did this past week, that there are no, we did everything to code. So even if they came in and said, hey, you didn't pull permits and we would have, told you to do this, that, and the other thing, we did this, that, and the other thing. Somebody being licensed, you may find yourself in a situation where you do need somebody who's licensed. You want to find out from your city or your county, whatever your municipality is that you would be pulling permits from, if that's required. Some people, they don't, some areas are unincorporated. You don't even need a license for anything. So it just depends. In our area, for example, if you're, you can do your own roof. if you own the house and you say that you're doing it as the owner, but if not, you need to be licensed. You can do certain things for plumbing, but if not, then, you know, you need to hire a licensed plumber. You know, same thing for electrical. So it's a little bit specific to it, when you find your first house and you know exactly where it is and who is the governing body that is telling you what to do. And sometimes, frankly, that sometimes is a consideration for where to do your deal. I would rather you learn by making mistakes in that than be overly cautious and not do a deal in an area. I can tell you that we've done flips in certain cities and municipalities that we said we would never do again because they were jackasses. You know, there was one particular, Streamwood, Illinois. I have no problem telling you guys that not the contractors, the
inspector,
the city inspectors were awful. They were so
it's like they were vindictive.
They had
like an axe to grind of some sort.
I don't even know. And it was, you know, maybe it was a little bit weird because this particular house we had used to be the mayor and he committed suicide there. So there's a whole story behind it. But, you know, they ended up fining us $1,200 for not pulling things that we didn't even know we needed to pull. So that's kind of a worst case scenario. What you want to make sure. So this is the way I go to bed and sleep well at night is, did I do everything I could so that the family moving into the house is safe, so that they feel really good about the house that they're living in? You know, sometimes people can do, I'll give you an example. We have a plumber who is licensed, and I know that the guy he hires to do the work is not licensed, but the guy who is licensed is going to approve the work. So can you get somebody to do the work that isn't necessarily licensed? Like an electrician might be $100 an hour, but he might have an apprentice who can do it cheaper. So a licensed person, generally speaking, is going to be more expensive. So it's a balance between always make sure that you're doing things, you know, up to the standard that's required. And more important than anything, up to this is I say, would I let my little brother move into this house? Would I let my grandma move into this house? And if the answer is no, then, you know, maybe you need to get somebody who's a little bit more qualified to do the work. But, you know, the general answer is, do you always need somebody who's licensed? Only when it's required to pull a permit and the city requires that person to have a license.
And also, Julie, as you get familiar with this business, you're going to make decisions based on what you feel is your best choice, and you can make those decisions on your own. You know, there's no hard and fast rules. We will not advise you to not have licensed contractors, but we will tell you this is your business, and you make decisions based on what you feel to be right, and also making sure that you don't ever put anyone in a situation where you're not handing off a really quality property where work has been done up to code.
Right. So sometimes we'll do a project and we are just going to, you know, change out the lights for some ceiling fans, for example. And then something happens where we have to open up the walls, which then requires a licensed electrician to do the work. So it depends. It's really, really specific to when you actually have the project going. And that'll be a conversation that you have with the city. And as you have more experience, you'll make some executive decisions on when to use a licensed person versus not.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
You bet. So how excited you are?
And again, welcome to
on a scale from 1 to 10 to be on the call with the FlipChicks and taking this next step.
I am a 10. I'm so excited. I couldn't wait to get started, and I couldn't wait for this meeting and trying to watch all the videos and not having enough time to watch them all. So
you know what? Take your time. Just keep going through. Be very methodical. Take good notes.
And stop when you need to take action.
Well, the suggestion is go through it one time to get familiar, so you have a comfort of the process that you're going down. But when then you can go back and you can take the action that you're learning. If you're someone who's going to take forever to go through the videos, just take the action right on the way through. But if you can, there's a process first where you go through, you become familiar with sort of the trail that you're going down. It's kind of like looking at a trail map. And then you go back through and be like, okay, I'm going to do this.
Yep.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
Well, welcome to the course. Great job.
Well, thank you.
And we'll look forward to updates. And obviously, we're excited to have you on here. And we're going to talk to you real soon. Okay, Julie? So welcome.
Well, thank you. And I'm very excited to be working with you guys.
Awesome. Well, you got a great group around you, and they're here to support you. And I know they're going to be watching to see you out on the RIA. So everyone look for Julie and Chaz. Can I say your last name, or is that okay?
Sure. Sure, that's fine.
Julie and Chaz Revel, is that right?
Yeah, Revel.
Okay. So watch for her. Be there to support her as well, and I know they will. Thanks, Julie.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, so let's do another quick hello. I want to jump on to, let's see, where did she go? Is she on here? There she is. Desiree, is it okay if I unmute you so you can say hi to everybody? Raise your hand if that's okay.
Raise your hand if that's cool.
Desiree, are you there? All right. Okay. Make sure you're unmuted on your end as well. Okay.
Hey,
hi, Desiree.
Hello, how are you guys?
Good. How you doing? Welcome to the FlipChick group mentor call, the Wealth Academy mentor call. This is awesome. Good to have you here.
Hello, everybody. I'm happy to be here.
You got quite a crowd, so everyone's here rooting you on, and welcome. This is a brand new experience for you, I'm sure. So what questions or thoughts do you have that you might want to ask or share as you get ready to dive into the curriculum and start taking next steps in your own flipping business?
I actually don't have any questions right now. I'm just excited to move through and not just read and learn read the videos and learn the information, but to actually do something about it. So
I love
Nice.
it.
And here's the thing,
She's like, I know what I need to do.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it. I want to do it. So be prepared to go make offers on lots of houses soon. And if you feel like you haven't gotten to the point where you're going to make offers on houses, get to that point. And just get through that course curriculum, and we're psyched to have you here.
And reach out through the RIA to the other ladies and couples that are on this call, because we are here to support you every step along the way. So there will be a time, probably in the next week, where you will have a question. So take advantage of the fact that you have access to everybody who's with us tonight is on the RIA. So post it there, and you will get answers from us, and not only from us, but from other sisters.
Lots of welcomes for Julie and Desiree popping through on the messaging. So everyone's really excited to have you here. Desiree.
Thank you. Yes.
We're proud of you, and we'll look forward. Be ready for each week's call, and we'll be talking to you real soon.
Okay. Thank you so much, guys.
You got it. Bye-bye. All right,
Okay,
everyone. So I want to see, did we miss a question? Let's just take a quick peek here.
All right.
When he was trackpad, so we don't end up.
Nate's always, he doesn't trust my technical skills here.
I just want to help. I trust you implicitly.
Okay, Ruthie's asking, how do I find deals in a competitive market? So that's a little bit of a loaded question. So competitive market. So here's what I had to tell myself.
What made you think it's competitive? I would love to know what made you think it's competitive, because that means you have information that makes you think it's competitive.
So, okay, I want to say, you want to be in a competitive market. If you're making offers.
Who's it competitive to? Investors or buyers? Is it sellers? Is it realtors? What makes it competitive? That's competitive, like Margaret said, is a very general statement, and it's a very loaded question. So I'm just going to suggest that we actually go live.
Actually, yeah.
Because that's the healthy way to do it.
All right, Ruthie. We're going to. I'm driving the technology right now. So
Go,
Ruthie,
Margaret.
I'm going
Go,
to
Margaret.
unmute you. Well, I messed up already. Raise your hand if we can unmute you. You're already unmuted. Ruthie.
Hi, guys.
Hey, Ruthie, how you doing?
Okay, so tell us what you mean by competitive market, because Nate brought up a good point.
And so did Margaret.
And just for the record, we flip in a competitive market, but what makes it scary about being a competitive market?
Can I just throw something in real quick before you answer?
Sure.
Did you ever hear what dead calm is? Do you know what dead calm is?
I don't.
No.
Dead calm is when you're in a sailboat or a sailing ship, a sailing vessel out in the ocean, and the seas are so quiet and the air is not moving and there's no wind to move your ship. So if you're not in a competitive market where investors are fighting to get new business and realtors are fighting to sell and buyers are fighting to buy, your flipping ship doesn't move. So competitive is good news, and I don't care who's competing. Flippers and investors are winning. Take over, Margaret.
Woo,
that's called dead calm, by the way.
I just wrote that down, like dead calm. You don't want to be in the dead calm. Okay, Ruthie. Movie, so tell me what you mean by competitive market.
Well, Colorado is everybody wants to live here. So Colorado Springs is not as big as Denver. That's the bigger metropolitan area close to me. The town I'm in, there aren't really houses for sale, and they start about $400,000. So I'm not even going to touch that stuff.
Okay.
But going to Colorado Springs, looking on the MLS, it's like people have already flipped them. The stuff on the MLS has already been renovated for under $200,000. That's my limit.
Okay.
And they're in areas where I don't think I could rent them. Certainly not for the price they're selling.
Okay, so I just want to say first, I love that you really understand the plan A, plan B. You wanna get into the business in the sweet spot so that you don't get stuck with something. So I really, really appreciate your knowledge with that. So that's big kudos to you for that. So where are you in Colorado? You're in?
I'm about 20 minutes west of Colorado Springs. So the town I'm in is maybe 30,000 people. So there aren't a lot of properties up here in the town I'm in. So I'm looking at Colorado Springs right now.
Okay, so
I think that's about.
And you see that other flippers are out there doing this.
Yep, I go to the local REI investor stuff, and there's always at least like 50 people at these things. There's tons of people in the Springs doing this.
Okay, so how connected are you to those people?
Not very. I've only been to maybe three things.
Okay, so part of your area, and I don't, everybody's area is unique because everybody has the same, like, hey, is this great for me? Because my area is XYZ. Colorado is very interesting to me because there is a ton of opportunity there, and you have to be in the game with the local players to understand it. That's true for anybody. So everybody listening, your area, there is an expertise, there's a local expertise that some people have that you don't yet have. And Ruthie, that's true for you. So what I love is that people are flipping houses and making money. The fact that there's people showing up at the RIA means that there's people interested in it. So can you commit to stepping up your game so that you have a better understanding of where these other people are getting the deals from?
Yeah, I can do that. I've just reached out to realtors on Friday, so I got some of them just were negative Nancy's, and so I'm not dealing with them. And then
cross them off, and they have no business being in your life. That's true, whether they're realtors or not. So you've been to 3 different RIAs or to one RIA 3 times?
The first one was about, what was it? Renting to own, that kind of shenanigans. And then the second one was.
Is a good way to put that.
Yeah, it seemed kind of unethical to me. I wasn't that interested.
So was that just, there was a speaker at a RIA that talked about that?
Yeah, he had a book and he was talking about his book. Yeah.
Okay, so this is a really good lesson for everybody. There are far more shenanigans going on in the investing world, the real estate investing world, than there are legit people. So sometimes you go to a RIA and you listen to shenanigans and you connect with people that are actually doing the business. So again, the idea of when you're meeting people, you're asking a bunch of questions. So Ruthie, how much time did you spend getting to know some of the other people in the room?
After that talk, we went to a restaurant and had a beer. So I talked to a few of them.
So, okay, let me ask this. How many people went to the restaurant versus the 50 people that were there?
About maybe like 15 people.
Okay, so a relatively fair number. So what I would recommend is next time you show up early at the RIA, like super early, and meet people as they're coming in, and without judgment, but really it is 100% with judgment, decide who you want to get to know and who you want to spend time with. It might not be the group of people that are hanging out to get a beer afterwards.
Okay.
And I don't mean that in a mean way, but you know, there's a very good chance that that's a subculture of the RIA group. So let me ask another question, because power's in the questions. How many of those 15 people were flipping real estate or investing?
It was the man who gave the presentation and a partner of his. They were both from Denver, so they kind of hosted the after hours thing.
Okay.
And then there was,
probably none.
2 guys sitting next to me who are flipping houses in the Springs.
Okay, so that's very common, and everybody take notice of this. Most people at a RIA are there for a social hour.
Dabblers.
They're dabblers, and it is your job to ask the questions when people come in. You know, get there early so that you're not the one showing up late to the party. Get there early, introduce yourself, and just strike up a conversation and use your intuition on who you meet that you think's full of shit. Ask them how long they've been part of the RIA. Ask them what kind of investing they're doing. People love talking about themselves. This is so, so important when you're at a RIA. Ideally, you don't give any information about yourself, because that's not why you're there. You're not there to sound cool. You're not there to make friends. You're there to investigate and to find out what people are doing so that you can make a note of who you might want to do business with in the future. There's a tendency when you're new in the game to want to, I'm going to use the word, it's a strong word, commiserate with other people who are in your shoes.
Or talk about their grand plans.
So find out. So when I don't go to RIAs regularly anymore unless I'm speaking at them. But there was a time when I was brand new and I would start going to RIAs. There may be 2, at most 3, if it's a really big RIA, 4 people who you want to connect with. And they're usually the people sitting in the back of the room, the people who are observing more than they're waxing eloquent about how great they are. I think about one of the last RIAs that I went to, and it's been several years now, that there's this old man there and he's not asking any questions, and there's just something about him. And I sit down and I introduce myself to him and I ask him a little bit about, why he's there, how long he's been attending. And I find out that he has several millions of dollars worth of real estate. He's there, just to keep his pulse on the game. He's not there to ask for money. He's not there, expecting to get something from somebody. So next time you go to the RIA, and try, go as soon as you can and figure out who those people are. Figure out who's in the game. You might even do a little bit of recon, find out some of these properties that you're saying, they're buying them for, whatever number and making this profit. So that there's people flipping houses. Find out who those people are, and maybe pick up the phone and have a conversation with them. Start getting in the local game there. So this is part A of my response to the what do you do in a competitive market. The other part of the answer is, maybe this isn't the market that you actually want to flip in. Ideally it's the backyard. Maybe if you start connecting with some other FlipChicks, you find out that there's actually a market where you feel better with. And I can't, this isn't we're going to solve this tonight, but have you looked at other markets?
I've looked at south of here. I've looked at a place called Canyon City, which is kind of quiet. There's a big prison there, but nobody quite knows about it yet. So I was looking at properties down there last week, and that was more of a better price range, but it's about an hour from me.
Okay. And better price range, what you want to make sure is that, better profit. So it might be worth doing a little bit more work locally to get, to be one of the players locally. And it might be looking an hour out, so long as the hour out doesn't mean that the profit diminishes the further you go out from the, city center or whatever you would call the hub of where the activity is. So
Okay.
get connected to what's going on. So the good news is competitive market means that you can be in the competitive market. You can be a competitor in that market when you start playing the game at the level that they're playing at. So find out who those players are. It's funny. So I've had people message and, they do the training or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, I'm local to you. Do you think we can both flip in the same town?" I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Any given day?" So let's say you looked for houses last week versus this week versus next week versus in the springtime versus in the summertime. This idea of a competitive market, yeah, you can generalize about a competitive market, but the fact is that you're looking at what house is available to me right now, today. If it's competitive, then tomorrow the answer is going to be that's a different house. And the next day, that's a different house. So how do you get in the game and be competitive? Find out do some research locally with these houses that have been flipped. Find out what did they buy it at? What was the purchase price? What did they do? What renovations did they do to the property, and what did they sell it for? So when you're in it's not even a competitive market, but any market, whatever market that you're in, for everybody else on the call, Ruthie's in a competitive market, we'll call it that. It means it's a good market. Competition is a good thing because I would rather be in a competitive market than a speculative market where I'm hoping.
We can dig deep, Ruthie, to help you understand. If you haven't gone through it yet, make sure that you do look at the sweet spot training to understand the price points that you're looking for, because this idea of a better market, a competitive market, being more specific is helpful. So competitive market, those are all real general terms, if that makes sense. Go to the sweet spot training. And also just keep going through the training and think about, what it is that you're looking for, and be willing to explore and learn where the opportunities are, and don't limit yourself to your backyard. We've had some amazing deals, including the 2 recent ones that we did that are over an hour and a half away, because we were willing to poke around.
Right. Yeah.
Does that help at first, just to give you a different way of thinking about it?
Yeah, those are good tips. Yeah.
And so you're on the right track.
Yeah, you're definitely, you're asking the right questions, and, the more you can get specific about what it is you're actually looking, you ask better questions, you get better answers. So if you're thinking, where can I find a house for this amount? You can call realtors in different towns. You can call all around and look for properties. You can go on Zillow. You can explore based on more specific questions and not limit yourself based on maybe some, preconceived notions or maybe some historic misunderstandings about where value really is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Be a white belt. Go in there and don't know, because when you don't know, that's when you get to grow.
Yeah.
Yep. Good point.
And be open to those markets that are outside of exactly where you are. I mean, even if you're talking about sort of a micro market, I couldn't flip houses in my neighborhood, but that doesn't mean I can't flip it 10 minutes away. And, when I look at some of the opportunities that we have 2 hours away are far better than opportunities that we have in our backyard.
And there's also opportunities that are 2 streets away. When you're, when someone walks in a room, Ruthie, and says, a question, makes a comment like, "Oh, how do you, invest in a competitive market?" Or is, whatever statement you might make, can you see how that might come across as if you have specialized information?
Yes.
So what I would like to ask, if a realtor said, "Well, you got to be careful, that's a very competitive market," I would ask a very experienced realtor, "Could you be more specific? What do you mean? Who's competing? What are they competing over? Is it price? Is it location? Is it property availability? Is there more availability or less availability?" You want to be able to, I would rather you ask the question, Ruthie, and this would be a good practice, ask the question from a place of not knowing and say, I'm looking in certain areas where I'm seeing these factors. I'm seeing houses are too expensive. houses are less expensive. A lot of houses are selling, but I can't seem to find the price point I want. Start to ask questions about what you're looking for and where you can find it, rather than maybe getting caught up in questions that, if you ask a limited question, you might limit your opportunities.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And this is for everybody on the call. Get connected to some of your local people. It doesn't mean that it's because you want to partner with them, but be friendly with them and gather information. I think about people that we've met over the years that we have actually become friends with and become peers with because we started a conversation about curiosity of what they are doing. And so when you go to a RIA with curiosity about people and understanding the dynamic that's going on versus I'm at the RIA because I need some money and I need a house. So when you go there to get, you're not going to get as much as if you go there with curiosity.
Be willing to keep your eyes and ears and all your senses open for opportunity while really be there to be curious about what someone else is going through and be thinking about what's in it for them. And you'll be amazed at what opportunities will pop up for you.
Yeah, and if it's sort of, if you go to a place expecting to find a spouse versus just meeting really cool people
and having a good time
you'll start to establish these long-term relationships. And this business is all about long-term relationships. Just like we've talked about tonight with meeting contractors, this is going to be true for other real estate investors. Your local RIA is your peer group. In addition to the FlipChick RIA, the online community that you're part of, your local RIA is going to be an extension of that. And you want to, show up, you want to be consistent with showing up so that people get to know who you are. But people are always more interested in what you think of them than what they're going to think of you. So show up in a way so that people remember you because of how interested you were in them. And, take note of who, it's just like any other community. So let's think back to your school days when you were in a classroom. There were people that you probably should have spent more time with and people that you probably should have spent less time with. And I know it sounds a little bit judgmental, but, when we're adults, we get to pick and choose who we spend our time with. And it's really important, no matter what your age is, that you're deliberate about who and how you're spending your time. So that's absolutely true for the RIA. So keep us posted, because I think that you're doing the right stuff. You're showing up in the right places. This idea of competitive market, that's a good thing, not a what do I do differently. The fact that you're in a competitive market, keep doing what you're doing and be persistent with it.
Yeah, a great question, and thanks for stepping up and asking, Ruthie.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Anything else?
Okay.
Any other thoughts or
Not tonight. No, I don't think so. But thanks, guys.
All right, thanks a lot. We're going to go ahead and mute you.
Thanks, Ruthie.
And thanks, everyone, for a great call. We covered a lot, so go back through your notes, think things through, and I'm going to leave you with this thought. Everything that you need to be successful at flipping real estate, I know because you're on this call, you have access to it. So all you need to do is keep taking steps forward, asking good questions, and going one day at a time.
All right, we love you all. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we will talk soon.
Great call, everyone. Have a great night.